served as like a metaphorical footnote to let the reader know that she is kind of just.
She's finally accepting her life that was in manzanar. Like, that's what it was, and now it's like time to move on. Like, I feel like while she was living in manzanar, she never accepted that that's what, does that make sense? Like, even though she was still in like.
Well, it affected all of her like,
Yeah, that's what I
decision
mean.
processes,
Yeah.
the
It
way
changed
she
her life
thought.
completely.
Yes.
To how who she is now. Grown, married, that's who she is.
Yeah, I would agree that the second farewell, as an adult with your children and husband, is like a mental, emotional farewell, right? It's almost sort of letting go of that baggage that manzanar has created in her own self-esteem, her own self-image, right? The way she sees herself. Because she's internalized so much shame, right? Based on that experience. That she has allowed, because how could you not, right? And this is just kind of normal psychology, this terrible experience of other people saying, there's something wrong with you, you need to be locked up, right? Even if it's sort of abstract, even if it is motivated by war and politics and nothing that her family is personally involved in, she can't help but internalize that shame and internalize this idea that, well, maybe there is something wrong with me, right? I'm not allowed in the Girl Scout troop, I'm not allowed to be the majorette. But she is allowed to be the queen.
No, but yeah.
But there's a fight for it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the scene I want to look at too. Okay, good. Let's kind of rewind and let's go through this section. So, chapter 18. What's going on in chapter 18?
That's when Woody Pate is family in Tokyo. No. Was it Tokyo?
Yeah.
I think it was Tokyo. No, it was next to Hiroshima.
Hiroshima.
Yep.
That's right.
Hiroshima.
So when he went to drop off the sugar, he just, he saw himself as a Nisei. So he was like, how can I win favor with this family that I've never met? So he gets the sugar, and they're embarrassed because something like sugar can be easily glossed over and just be dismissive about what sugar is, but because of their given circumstances and how they're all like pretty much like living in squalor and their living situation is so meager that when he brings the sugar, it's like this huge thing, and they're embarrassed because they're so excited about sugar.
Yeah. Yeah, but it has taken on a new value in this situation.
I didn't really understand this chapter. I don't know why.
Oh, okay, let's figure it out. So Woody goes to visit his family in near Hiroshima, and he feels like, I'm going to stick out like a sore thumb. Everyone can tell I'm American. Why else is he in a sticky situation in terms of why he is there? He's not just there for like fun.
He's in the army to find out what's happening to all the sugar on the black market.
Yeah.
He's to get it back. That's his role, to get it back. And then all of a sudden he finds himself giving back, like Robin Hood type thing. But yet he can give it to his family. So in a proud way, he becomes connected to the family by being able to provide for them something they couldn't have, but yet he's not considered an actual of their heritage because he's a Nisi. So it kind of hits a full circle for him.
Yeah, that he feels conflicted. He feels unsure how he will be received, right? Because he's representing, the American army, which is a conquering force over Japan, who lost the war. So he's got these personal ties, but also these sort of political differences too. But what does he find out about how they receive him?
They were very happy to receive him, mainly because of the fact that Ko had just left, and they just didn't hear anything from him for so long, and this was a chance to have, I guess, a piece of Ko back, and so they were just like, it was like, we don't care about anything, we're just happy that, somebody who's representing Ko's side of the family is here, and in a way his aunt was kind of like, he's like a piece of, Ko was her favorite, her nephew, and so it was like a piece of him being back, and they were willing to overlook all that stuff. And then, what's his name? Woody basically was very proud of his father. He learned to be very proud of his father for the fact that all the stories that his father had told him were actually pretty true, or were true. And so it was kind of like, he was like, oh, I'm able to close that door of like, I thought he was kind of, over exaggerating or whatnot. And so he gained a new respect for his father from that.
Yeah, good. So there's sort of multiple levels of healing going on for Woody in this trip, right? That he is accepted by his family, and that kind of nationalistic kind of division between America and Japan, they don't see that, right? All they see is family. So that's a healing moment for him. And then also kind of verifying that a lot of his father's stories were true, and he wasn't blowing it out of proportion to make himself sound better. Being able to say, okay, now I can heal a little piece of my relationship with my father, right? I can respect him, I can trust the word that he had there. Good. Other thoughts about chapter 18? Morgan, where did you feel confused?
I just have to, I don't know, it's just like, I understood, but then I just didn't, but now I understand. I just had trouble like reading it. I don't know, all these people, all these names, so I don't know.
Okay.
But I understand that.
And it does switch perspectives, right? We're no
Yeah,
longer looking
yeah.
at it of Jeannie's eyes. Okay, good. So moving forward, what are some other important scenes that we should focus on? There's a lot of good ones in this section.
You mean chapter 18? Or?
No, moving on, 19 through 22, just kind of moving on.
I like the chapter when.
How do you say her name? Is it Jean or Jean?
I've been saying
How do you say her
Jeannie.
name?
Jeannie.
Jeannie.
Is it Jean?
So,
Yeah.
this is actually something to
Janae.
just
Janae?
notice. That's what I thought.
Is it Jean or Janae?
So in the text of the book, whenever anyone refers to her or says her name, they say Jeannie with an IE.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever, or not whenever, but on the front, it's Jeannie just with an E, or Jean just with an E.
I got confused about
However, I've also known people named Jeannie who spell it this way with just the E.
Mm.
So I think as in terms of calling her her character name, right, or her kid name, I think we can just call her Jeannie. That is something that I literally had never noticed until this semester, and then I was thinking about it.
I'm glad I brought that up. But yes. Okay, I'm glad I wasn't the only one.
Half the time I was reading, I was like, Jeannie.
That's hard. So Jean, she had the dream about dream girl, that's right, dream girl.
Yes.
How her circumstances were nearly aligned with her friend,
Radine.
Reed.
Radine.
Her name was hard. Radine. Radine.
Uh-huh.
Their circumstances were very similar, and they had very socially they were almost equal, but her friend was getting all the attention, the acceptance that she so desperately craved.
But she was never jealous of her.
Well, the reason why she wasn't jealous, and they elaborate further in the book, but I just thought that was cool how she didn't hold it against her friend personally. She just understood that was her lot in life.
And why? Why did she accept that?
Because I think it's like a stereotypical thing, like, oh, you're Japanese, like, they already have like, everyone's like, I don't know, it's just like a stereotype, because she's Japanese, that like, it's okay that she doesn't get noticed or whatever, like, she thinks that that's okay, like, she's used to it, like she said, or whatever.
Mm.
Or she prepares herself because of the stories that she's heard and how she thinks it could be, but then when she gets there, it's not really that. And then that's how she's gonna figure out if that's the least of her acceptance, that she has to be accepted as not being accepted, then that's okay. Versus being, attacked or picked on or, whatever could have happened and made fun of. Those things don't happen to her. It's just the fact that she's not allowed to do all the things that she kind of wants to do. So if that's all that the worst of it is, then it's okay, kind of thing.
Mm.
I think a part of her accepts that that's the way it is because that's how she saw Japanese people in the beginning of the book. She thought they were, that she was scared of Japanese people or Asian people, and she had an outsider perspective to those people, and it's normal in her society for everyone to view her as now as one of those outsiders.
Mm-hmm. Yes, she takes on that role. She internalizes that role of being an outsider, right? Being less than. Yeah.
And she also kind of knew that it was Radine's fault. It was just like the way society viewed them.
Yeah.
It was just like she didn't blame her friend. It wasn't her friend's fault. And how it was just like how society saw her as a Japanese girl and saw her as a white girl. But
Mm.
I was just gonna say, I mean, I went through a similar experience when I was living in New Hampshire, and the way I felt was like I shared it with her. Is like I viewed myself as an American, and everything seemed like it didn't really compute to me. It was a really like a psychological battle, because I started hating myself and I started resenting myself for being of Cambodian descent, and so because of the fact that people picked on me and people, just they were very naive to the feelings. They were just reacting more on fear, or like people being afraid of sharks or that sort of thing, because they don't really they don't really know the habits of sharks and stuff like that. So they assume before they actually ask questions and such. So it was I can understand where she got that psychological battle inside her head.
Yeah, and we are such social creatures that, to our benefit or detriment, whatever the group kind of treats us as, a lot of the times we will internalize, right? We will start to believe it. And a lot of times that can be good if we're in a supportive atmosphere, but if we're in an atmosphere that is telling us bad things about ourselves, we almost can't help but absorb those things. And poor Jeannie, it makes sense that she doesn't react against Radine and resent her for it. Although probably a different person could have that reaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because unfortunately, and just very sadly, she takes on that role. And this kind of moment with Radine also helps us to look at this concept of intersectional identities. Anybody heard of this before? Oh, good, thank you. That's a great segue. Okay, so let me see if I can kind of map this out for us. So, say that this line here equals class, right? Here's wealthy, and here's poor, right? Radine and Jeannie both land probably somewhere around here, right? They're not homeless, but they're not really even middle class, right?
They're more on the poor side because they don't even have lunch.
Yeah.
They live in
The projects.
What do they call it? The projects, whatever they called it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's times where they have to share each other's stuff. So they're very poor.
Yeah, so they're probably somewhere around here, would
Yeah,
you say,
yeah.
right? They're not all the way here,
No.
but they're about right here, right?
Right.
So let's say Jeannie is here, and Radine might even be a little bit poorer than Jeannie, at least at first, right?
Right.
Because Jeannie's the one who shares her lunch with her. So here's this axis, right? Or axis, right? We're thinking about a graph. And then imagine that these lines are race. I'll put it.
Race,
Yeah, race.
as in like Japanese and American, right?
Yeah.
Alright.
So here we have Jeannie as Japanese, and then we have Radine as white. So we could say, in terms of the things that make up each girl's identity, they intersect, like various things intersect, right? Jeannie is, they also share gender, right? So we could say they're both girls, they're both female, and they're both pretty poor. So we've got gender and we've got class, and they have those similarities. But the thing that is different is the way that race interacts or intersects with their gender and their class. And it has two very different outcomes, right? So, what is the outcome socially for Jeannie?
She was not allowed in a lot of things that Radine were allowed in.
Yeah, exclusion, social exclusion. People kind of looking down on her. Now, what is the outcome for Radine?
Acceptance.
Yeah, or inclusion. Acceptance, inclusion. So we can see how these different parts of their identity actually intersect and interact with each other. But here, race kind of wins out as the deciding factor over both gender and class. Does that make sense, the way this works? Yeah, this is a good concept to keep with you as you go forward in your college studies. Okay, so we talked about Radine. Why on page 157 does Jeannie have this situation where she becomes stunned about how her classmates react to her on the first day of school? Yeah.
fact that the other girl doesn't believe or can't. I think that she can speak English as well as she can. And so it's kind of like, well, how are you able to do that kind of moment? And she's really taken back from it, like, well, why shouldn't I? Because in reality, I was an American Japanese, but you guys now, they all of a sudden appear here, you know what I mean? Like, so, that's what.
Yeah, good, good. Should we do that?
Yeah, that was really an interesting, what page was it on? 'Cause I like-
157.
Cause I lived in Japan for about 2.5 years, so for a really long time, when I came back to the United States, I was kind of like under the impression that when I would see an Asian person, I would just assume that they couldn't speak English. Not because I was racist, but because I lived in Japan, so I don't know. Cause someone called me out on it once, cause I was, long story short, she said, "That's racist." I'm like, "What do you mean?" Cause I told her exactly what I just said. She's like, "Yeah, that's racist." I was like, "Oh my God, it is racist." I lived in Japan, so they see me and I'm a foreigner, and they're like, "Well, why doesn't this, what do they call them? Gaijin." They're like,
Gaijin.
Who is this foreigner? He's just gonna come in Okinawa, think he freaking owns the place, and he doesn't speak Japanese? So it's like, in my situation when I was there, it's like the shoes on the other foot.
Yeah.
They just, when the Japanese would see us, they would just assume, oh, yeah, this guy's, he can't speak English, like, what does he know?
Yeah.
So,
And from what I've heard, I haven't been to Japan.
that's what they do. No issue.
My boyfriend also lived there for a couple years. But it tends to be a very homogenous culture, right? It's very, very clear, who's in and who's a foreigner. And there's a big sense if you're a foreigner that you never quite can blend in.
Mm.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone here watches the show Girls, but there's this one episode where the girl came back from Japan, and pretty much she was kind of like annoyed how Americans were so disrespectful. Because there, I guess in Japan, everybody like opened the door for you and was more respectful, and like, I don't know. And then she was just like, I hate Americans, even though she was an American. I don't know why I brought that up.
I don't think that's true. Japanese
Really?
people, they're just like us, they just,
It really depends on where you're at. If you're on the subway, it's no fun.
yeah.
Public transit is dicey, I think, anywhere you go.
Yeah.
We're good? Okay, but let us kind of corral ourselves back into Farewell to Manzanar. So what is going on when Radian says, gee, I didn't know you could speak English? I mean, is this motivated out of racial hatred?
Ignorance.
Yeah.
Ignorance.
You would think it would be what was portrayed to her the opposite way around, by either media, her parents, or whatever else she's getting that misinformed information from. And so that's how she's then conjured up the idea of what Japanese people should be or shouldn't be.
Yeah, good morning.
Oh, I was just gonna say that, like, it's like she, said something like, I didn't know you could speak English. I would think that, but I don't know, I would never say it. Like, I don't know why.
But when you were.
Like, I would never say that out loud to someone. Like, I didn't you could speak.
That's pretty off base, yeah.
Yeah, like, I didn't know you could, Or like, I'm Mexican, but people are like, I didn't know, like, it just, yeah, Rodriguez Rodriguez. But, just like that kind of thing, like, you just don't think to say, or those kind of, I don't know, that's just me, I wouldn't say that.
Yeah, so you probably, have been raised in a more multicultural environment, right?
Yeah.
So there's probably a level of awareness of
Yeah,
diversity and multiculturalism. Okay.
Also, at that age, you don't have a filter what you say, so what's on your mind comes out. So
Yeah.
I think by that age, because kids say the brutalest, honest thing, but
Yeah.
it's usually until they've lost that, what do you call it, innocence. When that innocence is gone, then you lose that, because then there's no sense of awareness of what it is that you're a part of anymore, so there's no innocence anymore.
Yeah, and thinking back to what you said, Sean, about the Wakatsuki's expectations of how mainstream America would react to them when they come back, right? They had heard these horror stories of violence, of being attacked, right, or having terrible racial slurs hurled at them, just when they're out on the street. But really, what they come back to find is like they had been erased from the American consciousness, right? The average American probably didn't know, and especially their sixth grade, they didn't know that thousands of people had sort of like disappeared from society and had gone into these concentration camps. So instead of getting like overt attacks, they have been sort of forgotten, right? Forgotten and erased. And that has its own kind of psychological damaging aspects too.
But then there's, I don't know where part of it is where they're talking, it's really way in the back, when she reflects upon, the bus stop and Woody and getting spit at or whatever.
Yeah.
That was really kind of a poignant moment where I thought it just kind of sums it up for you, where,
How things are.
yeah. But then she doesn't dwell on it though either. She only points it out later on as the reasons why they don't talk about things, because there were some things that you don't want to relive or whatever, but they do mention it. She comes back.
Yeah, and it's the shame, right? The
Right.
shame makes you not want to speak about it and
Right.
try to just kind of bury it. Okay, let's fast forward. Where's the next place we want to look at? Speaking about intersectional identities, where does Jeannie's gender come into play?
Somewhere in here, she paints a picture of herself.
She paints a picture of herself?
Yeah, well, you don't know that she's got some looks going for her.
Oh.
You don't know that she's starting to find out, well, I might be able to use that to my advantage if what do I want to?
Yeah.
And then there's the whole point of Papa telling her, well, that's not how I would prefer you proceed. And then Mom was like, well, she's growing up and she's in high school now. So, you know what I mean? It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, let's look at that on bottom of 163. And then sort of top of 164.
Right?
Okay. I don't know, you just looked at sweating. Okay, so for all the back. So the Girl Scouts was much like a sorority of the kind it would be excluded from in high school and later on in college, and it was run by mothers. The Boy Scouts was like a fraternity and run by fathers. Radine and I were both maturing early. The boys in the band loved having us out there in front of them all the time, bending back and stepping high in our snug satin outfits and short skirts. Their dads, mostly Navy men, loved it too. And at that age, I was too young to consciously use my sexuality or to understand how an Oriental female can fascinate Caucasian men. And of course, far too young to see that even this is usually just another form of invisibility. And then the top of 164, she says, from that point on, I knew intuitively that one resource I had to overcome the war-distorted limitations of my race would be my femininity. So what's going on there?
Well, it's your first kind of, it's your first kind of understanding that she is attracted to Caucasians because they find her attractive, or they find that she feels like, I don't know, that they enjoy the company of Oriental women. Not necessarily.
Does that give you a creep factor?
No, not really, but it kind of lays the foundation for what later perceives it as being. That's why she gets married to a Caucasian man, and you know,
Does
so
Yeah.
Yeah, the Caucasian.
yeah.
Well, we can assume by his
No,
name, James.
He said they say
And
it,
then
don't
she
they?
says also.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
does.
okay.
She does say.
Okay, yeah, did you?
Oh, I was gonna say that she was like raised, she was raised to think the definition of a good-looking guy was Caucasian, or the definition of beauty was, Caucasian. So of course, that's what she's gonna find attractive. But I think I was going back to what was happening with her growing up as a girl. I'm not sure exactly what age she was when she was doing the baton twirling thingy, or when.
So she started in manzanar, but then when she gets out, she's like junior high.
Okay, so she was a teenager, maybe like 16 or so, yeah. And so I'm guessing the reason why the Navy guys saw that is because it's kind of like the forbidden fruit or whatever, and that's why they were like so interested in it. And she didn't really realize that until later on. So she still had that innocence, but she did remember that they did that. They were doing those. They were acting that way while she was doing, while she was baton twirling and whatnot.
Yeah, but she can get some positive seeming attention
Yeah.
in that context.
And then she uses it to her advantage later on when she wanted to become queen.
Yeah.
And whatnot, so.
Good, and that is a scene I really want us to look at and focus on. because it's important, but also because it's going to be one of the options of things you can choose to focus on for your next essay. So let's look at where that scene is. It's on 173.
On what?
173. So we've got, okay, so they moved away from where Radine was, right? They moved to San Jose. She's going to a different high school. And then she says, I was among 15 girls nominated to walk out for inspection by the assembled student body on voting day. I knew I couldn't beat the other contestants at their own game, that is, look like a bobby soxer. Yet neither could I look too Japanesey. I decided to go exotic, with a flower print sarong, black hair loose, and a hibiscus flower behind my ear. When I walked barefooted out onto the varnished gymnasium floor, between the filled bleachers, the howls and whistles from the boys were double what had greeted any of the other girls. It sounded like some winning basket had just been made in the game against our oldest rivals. Okay, so what's going on here? Let me see. What is kind of she calculating? Yeah.
She realized that, you know, that she, like I was saying earlier, like she was getting the attention of the guys through her sexuality, basically, and so she used that to her advantage, or she tried it out to see if it would, how they would react, and to her it was like a positive thing,
Yeah.
but then she realized later that she didn't really like that type of attention, and she was fighting against it with her father. But then realized later that she had agreed with her father, because that was kind of the attention that almost gave her a different type of shame.
Yes, yeah, good. And I want us to tease those things apart. You're totally like on point here. So first of all, let's kind of run through her thought process on how she portrayed herself, right? What her appearance was during that kind of gym rally.
So when she said she couldn't be a bobby soxer,
What does that mean?
True.
Like everybody else, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah, particularly what is a bobby soxer? Adolescent?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it implies a teenage girl. Yeah.
It was kind of like a girl like in the 40s or 50s that like followed the trends, like, you know, skirt, blouse, like, think of your prototypical 50s girl, like Grease, like
Yeah.
girl from Grease.
Yeah, good. So usually, you know, if you can have a mental image of this, she's got probably a cardigan, she's got a poodle skirt, she's got those Oxford shoes, right? It is this particular style, this particular trend. And it's basically sort of the white standard or model of beauty. Oh, and my pen is dying, let me find a better one. Okay, so why does she think she can't do that? She can't be that image.
Because she's Japanese.
Yeah, so she could don those clothes, right? She could try to fit into that trend.
But just being Japanese won't allow that to happen.
Yeah.
Because she's not Bobby Soxer. She's not that Caucasian girl with the flip skirt and everything else. She just won't be looked at like that.
Mhm.
She's got slanted eyes and she's Asian.
Mhm.
So that's why she won't do it.
Yeah.
But
and-
her advantage, I'm sorry, but her
Oh, yeah.
advantage is the fact that everybody else is attracted to her in some other form. So that's how that works.
Good, so she can't become white, right? She can't achieve the beauty standard that being a Bobby Soxer would ask someone to do. Okay, so why can't she then don like a kimono and do sort of traditional Japanese garb? Yeah.
Because it would really point out that she's Japanese, and she didn't want to display that. She didn't want to be reminded of why she was in the camp, and I mean that basically made her feel, that would make her feel like, or bring her back to that memory. So she definitely wanted to avoid that.
Yeah, good. So this would remind people of like a specific, it's almost sort of a cultural, political kind of tangle at this point, right? It becomes very charged to be Japanese. Okay, so in some way that would be negative. Now, why does she then choose exotic? What does that mean? How does that work to her advantage?
Like the forbidden fruit. It is, that's what she says, like, nobody else can do or look like I am, because I'm the one who's different. So therefore, it gives me the advantage. I'm the exotic one, I'm the like, I don't know, one is different from everybody else, therefore it makes her wanted, right?
Different but not
In a
threatening.
certain way, right? Because she's so different. Everybody else, I mean, there's lots of those, but only one of those, right?
Yeah.
So that's what gives her the advantage. That's why it's exotic, because it's different.
So it's sort of vague in the sense
Right.
that exotic
Right.
doesn't tie her to a specific ethnicity, right, or a specific race. And it somehow achieves the idea of being different but not threatening. But if we dig deeper into that idea of the term exotic, when can it become kind of a problematic thing? What does it imply?
Sexuality.
Okay, usually when we think about exotic,
It's,
we think about possibly sexuality. But what else? What if I say an exotic food?
Something dangerous,
What was that?
something dangerous or
Okay.
different.
A little edgy somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something different, kind of like a fall. No,
A what?
I don't think I want to know about that, never mind.
Do you mean like the acronym FOB, fresh off the boat?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it is highlighting a difference in some way.
Something unknown.
Yeah, so it has these undertones of kind of the idea of the other, right? That here we are, here's our kind of white dominant society in school, and then here's an element that is interesting and exotic because it's like different from us and separate from us, but still it's like vague enough to not be threatening, right? It becomes this novelty, it becomes an item to sort of look at and then to objectify.
right.
What does this word mean?
You stop viewing them as a person. You view them more as an object.
Yes. Viewing a person as an object, often for your kind of consumption. Right? So, this kind of explains to us why, at first, Jeannie feels really good getting all the attention, right? All the boys are cheering for her, and probably the girls too, because they can admire her beauty. But then, you know, it kind of sours a little bit for her, right? How come?
And also because her father always talked about her being, covering herself and not represent that image of being the bad girl, I don't know how to call it.
Being modest, right?
Mhm.
That somehow shows your virtue or your morality.
Because, well, she was,
You know, something interesting, something intriguing, something that looks different, but it's kind of vague and non-threatening, right? It's enticing. Then people start to kind of objectify her, right? They see her as an object for their consumption, right? Consumption can be kind of looking at someone lustfully, or kind of wanting them in that way, which presumably some of the male students did. And she kind of picks up on that, right? And that doesn't actually kind of give her recognition for the value of herself as a person, right? And as fitting into the student body, but rather kind of being still separate from them, even though it is positive or positive-ish regard that she gets in this situation. Okay, good. Let's see what time it actually is, if we got a fast clock over there. Let's look at one more scene.